Justin Williams of AfroUAE, and we are here with an interview today. We're interviewing Ms. Rohnda Taylor. She's Assistant Superintendent of the Uniondale School District here in Long Island, New York, Nassau County. I've worked with Rhonda and found her to be an exceptional educational leader, and I'm really privileged to be able to interview her today to talk about African American female leadership within the education realm. Hi, Rhonda.
Hey.
Thank you so much for your time. Let's start out with your background. Can you tell me about your childhood? What it was like? Where was it?
So that's always a very warm place for me to go back to because I had a beautiful childhood. Growing up on the amazingly stunning island of Barbados. Sunshine, blue waters, beaches, friendly neighbors, a village that really raised the children.
Were you on the coast?
Not on the coast,
Okay.
In Bridgetown, which is the capital, but lots of opportunities to go to the beach, to go up the coast road driving, and just a place where children were able to be children. So I look back at my childhood with a lot of fondness.
Okay. What about your parents? Where were they from, and were they? How much education did they have?
So my parents had a huge influence on me, and I always say, but for them and God, right? Where would I be today? So both of my parents are Barbadian, born in the countryside, got married, and moved the family to the town. So I'm a bit of a town girl. But because my parents came from the country, they came with a lot of values that you didn't always see in families that were raised right in the town, because there's a certain amount of humility that you come with when you're from the country, because you don't always have light, right? You don't always have maybe water. Sometimes the water gets cut off. So my parents were very humble people, and I think because of that, one of the things that I look back at when I reflect on who I am is the fact that I too am a very humble person.
Were your parents formally educated?
Oh, yeah. So you did ask that before. And my parents were not. I think both of my parents probably went to what was called Standard 3. And so Standard 3 might have been like primary school, elementary school, maybe third grade. Neither of them had a college degree. Neither of them, I don't think, graduated high school. My dad left Barbados, I think, when he was maybe about 19 to go to Florida so he could be part of a group of young men who went to pick, I think, oranges or something like that in Florida. And my mom gave up the opportunity of a lifetime. My mom was an amazingly brilliant woman, but gave up the opportunity of a lifetime to go to London to become a nurse because of me, because she had children and she was not willing to leave her children behind so that she could progress in life. And so, hence, why I always say, my life belongs to her.
Sure. Any siblings?
Yes. So I'm from a very big family. 7 brothers and sisters. I have 4 sisters who are all still alive and 2 brothers who are alive. And one of my brothers, the oldest child, passed a couple years ago.
So where are you on that sibling continuum?
I am the baby, can't you tell?
You're the baby.
I'm the baby, and I say can't you tell because people who meet me always say, you're the baby of your family, right? Because,
Yeah. Yes. Well, do tell us, what do they say about the youngest children?
Well,
a big family.
Not that it's true, but people often say you're spoiled. Just because you've had so many siblings before you who did it for you, right? And so honestly, if I look myself in the mirror, I have to say my sisters especially were very willing to always jump in and kind of do things for me and take care of me. And so it was nice.
How far back can you trace your ancestry?
Well, I don't know if I've been telling you that I'm on this family chat, right? So, so I'm on this family chat now. with my cousins from Barbados, cousins that I never even knew. And so it's called the JHC. It's named after my grandfather. But I've only known my mother's mother and my father's mother. I never knew either of my grandfather, my paternal or maternal grandfather. But I can trace my mom's side back to my great-grandmother because my sisters tell lots of wonderful stories about her and who she was as a human being. On my dad's side, I can only really go back to my grandmother. Shamefully.
And why is that, do you think?
Well, I think it's because our parents kind of dealt in the here and now, right? So these are your aunts, this is your uncles, this is your whoever's alive. Something though that I'm doing very differently in the raising of my own daughter. I do want her. She's on the family chat, and because she's on the family chat as well, she's getting to know her cousins and her great grandparents and her great great grandparents. So she'll be able to go much further back than I ever did, and because according to her, she's woke, right? She has even more interest in wanting to know her lineage and her ancestry.
Right.
And her roots. She's a very proud African girl. So she wants to go back as far as possible and kind of trace her family lineage. And so I hope she does that before.
I asked that question because, the African slave trade, right, was a huge part of a history of us here in the Western Hemisphere. And I thought heavily about it when my mom passed in '96, and that when that's something like that happens to you, it forces you to go back and figure out what happened and where your roots are, and research your parents a little bit more
and who you are.
Yeah, and so figuring out how far back I could go before that slave trade hit you, and understanding that I did have a grandparent on one of my sides, a great grandparent who originates in Barbados, and then realizing how important Barbados was as an island in the history of the slave trade.
Extremely.
So that's why I asked, and I always am curious about that when it comes to especially West Indian people, because this is all part of who we are.
Yeah.
So where'd you go to college, and when did you first realize that you wanted to be an educator?
Yeah. So I came to the United States when I was 16 years old. I came in January of '82. I was set to graduate in May of '82 at the age of 16 in Barbados, which is typically the age we graduate, right? So
is that the British system?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And so I would have graduated at 16, and I don't even remember at the time what I wanted to do there. I remember growing up and wanting to be an air hostess. I thought it was so glamorous, and the girls were so pretty, and they get to fly around. And then my parents gave me a rude awakening and said, we're moving to America, right? So I came here and went to high school here and then went on to college. But because I came during the time when most kids my age was going through the college process, they had already done college tours, and I didn't know much about the college system here.
Sure.
I applied to and got into New York University. But unfortunately, my parents could not afford to pay for that, and I wasn't here long enough to get scholarships and all that stuff. So I decided to go on to Brooklyn College, and I went to Brooklyn College. I pursued a bachelor's degree in sociology. I wanted to be a lawyer, and got my bachelor's and decided after I registered for my first law class at Brooklyn College that it started around 4 o'clock, and I was like, oh, let me see. What can I do that I can get off in time to get to school for 4 o'clock, right? Very selfishly, I chose, practically, and kind of selfishly, I chose teaching, right? So let's see if I can go around a corner to this middle school over by my house and see if they want a teacher. And I'll never forget walking into the office and meeting this woman, and we talked for a little while, and I thought, that accent sounds familiar. Mixed with a little something. But and then she said to me, where are you from? And I said, Barbados. And she said, girl, you're Bajan, you can teach. And hired me on the spot, right? And Justin, the rest is truly history. Because I took that job as an opportunity to go back to school, to start taking some law classes, because I was going to be this big shot lawyer, right? never knowing that I would fall in love with teaching, with education, and with the scholars that I was coming into contact with. And because I was teaching in what most consider an inner city school in a neighborhood that's maybe low middle class, a lot of my scholars were getting into trouble, right? There was a lot of gang activity, lots of blood and crip fighting, and lots of things that my kids were getting into. And so, I really thought about it, and I'm saying to myself, wow, I'm going to be a lawyer and probably be representing some of these kids from my neighborhood, right? Why don't I catch them at the front end where I can educate them academically as well as socially, emotionally, to prevent them from having to pay big shot lawyers a lot of money to get out of issues, right? And so after my first semester at Brooklyn College, I changed. In
law school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I changed to guidance and counseling. Wow. And I did a master's in guidance and counseling. I thought I wanted to become a guidance counselor. Right. And before I could do that, I decided, I see some people around here running schools that are really not making decisions in the best interest of kids. And I think I can do this and do it better because I really care, right? And so I decided to go back to school again and get a second master's in administration. And shortly after getting that master's, I got an AP position in one of the middle schools in District 17.
Wow. So how long did you teach?
I taught for 7 years.
And you taught what?
I taught social studies, I taught Spanish, I taught English.
Oh, Spanish.
Listen, in New York City at the time, wherever there was a position and you could breathe,
wow.
you were getting a job, right? There wasn't all these issues around certification and all that. So I taught Spanish.
And what year
I would go home, middle school.
No, but what year in the 80s? What, 85?
This was in the, so this would have been in the early 90s.
Early 90s, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would go home and teach I took Spanish in college, right?
Okay.
Just enough to take a course. Right. And so I would go home and review the lesson the weekend, and every night before I went to school the next day and taught it. Right. But guess what? I gave it the very best I could because I just felt like my scholars should get the best.
Right.
But when I saw things like that, I felt like I could do a good job of leading a school where scholars were placed first and where I wasn't just saying to somebody, you're Bajan and you can teach, You
said just a minute ago that you felt like you could teach whatever because you cared.
Yeah.
So do you feel that there are a lot of people in education who are not doing as well as they could teaching because they don't care or because they don't know how to be better, or what combination do you think there is?
Well, clearly there are some people who do not care. I think there's some people who decide to get into education because they get off at 3 o'clock. They can pick their kids up and go.
Isn't that why you
right? Exactly. And then there are those who go in because they get summers off. Right. There are myriad of reasons. I started out by saying I selfishly chose that, right? But I think that for the most part, people who go into education go into it because they really do care. And I think the vast majority of teachers need support and professional development and help and assistance in becoming great teachers. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's because they don't care about the scholars they serve. I think sometimes it's because they don't know. And a lot of us don't know when we start jobs. We all need that time of grooming to grow into the professional and the educator, the leader that we're called to be.
So what do you think some of the essential things are that an educator needs to know in order to be what you and I and what other people would call, quality educator?
So one of the best books I've ever read was a book entitled Leading from the Heart. I think there should be a book written, and maybe you and I can co-author this book.
Let's do it.
Teaching from the Heart. I think that if people are coming into education with their heart, if they love what they do, if they love the families they serve, if they look at it as a service. My first year of teaching, I started signing my letters to parents in service for children. And I've signed every letter since my first year of teaching that way, right? Because I truly believe that this is a calling and that this is a service. This is not something that I'm just doing. And so I think that if people came into it with that first, I think that is essential to love the job, to love the service, to love the community that you're servicing and that you're working in. I think that's paramount. And then after that, after caring and really loving and working from the heart, then of course it is not just waiting to be professionally developed, but also to seek out. Because if you love what you do, you want to become better at it. And so you're not sitting around waiting for people to just spoon feed you information, right? And give you resources. You're also out there running it down. You're hungry to become better at your craft. And I think the other thing is being a reflective practitioner. I think that too often teachers say it's the parents that's at fault, and the leaders say it's the teachers that's at fault, and then the superintendents say it's the principal, and everyone's looking to blame someone else, right? And so I think that if we each become reflective practitioners, then we can really focus on what we need to do better, not on how the people we're servicing is not doing their job, but how can we better do our job in order to better impact our children and our families.
So how do you provoke that sort of reflection as an educator, as an education leader?
Yeah, I think leaders have to model it first. I think that if you are the superintendent, you're at the top of the food chain, you are a reflective practitioner, and people should see that you reflect in that. You don't just say, oh, I'm the superintendent, so I'm at fault. It's really not about that. It's really about when you speak to people, when you send out missives, when you send out memos, when you meet with groups, they can tell that you are reflective because you're always thinking and talking about how you can develop and become better. And so I think that anything that's modeled from the top becomes a reality from the bottom up.
Yeah, so true. Good, bad, or otherwise, right?
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah. So how many years have you been an administrator?
Oh, man. So I think I'm in my 33rd year. And I'm only 35.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm in my 33rd year.
So you are a seasoned educator. And has it all been in New York?
All been in New York, yes.
Okay. And how many years were you in New York City?
I was in New York City for 28 of those 33 years. I worked, like I said, as a teacher, as an assistant principal, as a principal, and then as the superintendent of Uniondale School District 17 in Brooklyn.
Okay. And you've been in Long Island now how many years? 5 years. Any kind of interesting similarities or differences between the educational landscape in Long Island versus New York City?
Well, certainly more similarities than folks on Long Island would dare to admit to. I think the biggest similarity is that we're servicing families, and that when you really take a look at it, children are children across the board. It doesn't matter what color, what socioeconomic background they're from. Teenage children are teenage children, right? Elementary scholars are elementary scholars. High school scholars are no matter where you go. They may have different opportunities available to them. They may have more support in some areas, less support in some areas. But the people we service are generally the same. Parents all want the same thing for their children, right? Whether I'm poor, middle class, or extremely wealthy, I want my children to be successful, right? So similarities in the servicing of families. But I find that there are lots of differences in terms of New York City really offering so much more professional development for their teachers, for their leaders. And they don't tie you to where you can be professionally developed, right? I find that here, my experience has been, if teachers can't find it on Long Island or New York City or within the tri-state area, then they can't go. And there's so many great professional development opportunities outside of the state where they should be getting together So if there's an English conference, they should be getting together with colleagues in the same field. And so I find that's one of the big differences. Also, I think that New York City not only provides a lot of professional development, but they mandate professional development because they know that that's the way teachers really grow and become better at their craft. And then finally, I think that when I got here to Long Island, I noticed like an air of superiority where Long Island looks at New York City as, this place where...
That's true. That's true. There is some of that. There's a lot of that.
And it's not really true. Having worked in New York City and having worked here, I found that by the time I got here, New York City had already, looked at the Common Core and were doing the bundles and was really rolling it out in a way that Long Island had not yet started to do.
Rhonda, talk to me about some traits that you feel that you bring to leadership.
Well, we started this conversation talking about growing up in a home with several brothers and sisters. So as much as you can be spoiled as the last child, there's also a certain amount of humility that's taught in the village of the Caribbean home. And so I think I definitely bring a lot of humility to my work as a leader, understanding that I make errors, understanding that, there are days when I need support. And so I think that sense of humility really helps a lot. But outside of that, I love working and mentoring young people. I love the opportunity to walk into a classroom and be able to see the teacher and notice that X factor that I think or I know would make them a great leader. And then to follow up by working with them, supporting them, mentoring them, having them come to my office for internships. I think being a good leader means building capacity. And one of my strong points is the ability to build capacity from those who are already working with me.
How do you do that without stepping on the toes of principals that you supervise?
So because I work likewise with them, supporting my principals where necessary, being there as a sounding board, my principals understand that I am not seeking to take from them, but I'm seeking to build their work even more by pulling out some of their strong teachers, working with them, and then sending them back to their building, and in the hopes that they're ready for leadership positions when they come up. So I think because of that, principals receive that well, and they too reach out for help and support.
So where do you see yourself in the process of principals supporting teachers?
I think that we've made a lot of inroads in terms of that. That's been a constant conversation in the last 5 years in Uniondale with principals I work with. I think because good leadership means that you model what you want to see from others, and I model supporting them, I model providing them with resources and with books, and with professional
you mean
principals, right? Yes, and with professional development offers outside of the school district. Then likewise, they're able to turn around and do the same for their staff. I think modeling in leadership is crucial, because you should, it shouldn't be do what I say and not what I do. It really should be do what I do because I'm modeling best practices.
Would you say that you are par for the course when it comes to African American female leadership, or would you say that you are an exception? And so let me further emphasize that working with you as I have, you stand out to me in terms of leaders of any caliber that I've come across. But I'm interested to talk to you about what I like to call chocolatey female leadership, right? And so many sisters that I've seen here just in this region have a lot of problems, run into a lot of problems, whether it has to do with rubbing people the wrong way or being perceived in ways that are not helpful to their long-term success in the field. I see you as very different, and so could you talk about that?
Well, let me first say thanks. That's a huge compliment. I never see myself as an exception, especially among my sisters. But I would say that my style of leadership is unapologetic. I'm just who I am. I bring my real self to work and to the table every single day. But I also understand that some of my sisters are dealing with issues where they do not feel comfortable being themselves. They feel like they have to be and behave like the boss. I never feel that pressure to have to act like I am the boss. I feel like people respect me as the boss or as someone who's in charge, but they also respect that I also am happy to give other people the opportunity to be the boss or to be in charge.
But we got to parse that out, because you generally don't rub people the wrong way, and a lot of people in leadership positions do. Why do you feel that you don't rub people the wrong way?
I think it's because I respect people, and people see that. They hear that from me. When I ask them to do something, or even when I have to do a reprimand, right? There are times when I have to, take a hard line. I have to write a letter or reprimand someone. But even in doing that, it's done with sincerity. It's done because I want you to become better, because I want you to grow. It's never in a tone where I'm the boss and you're the employee, or you're the principal, and so now you're being reprimanded. And so I think because my style is so much of respect and support, that people can accept a reprimand. Whereas for others, that reprimand has to say, and I'm reprimanding you because I'm the boss, right? And so I think that may be one of the key differences in my leadership style, where because I come from a place of humility, I understand that my role is not to ever put people down, not to ever make people feel less than, but to always be there to provide the support that they may need to become better at their craft. And understand that I'm learning and growing too, and I'm okay with that.
Would you say it's as simple as the fact that you grew up in a two-parent household? Or is it more complicated than that?
I think it's much more complicated than that, but I will say that it is important when you have grown up in a two-parent household. I think it makes you a lot more grounded, a lot more confident. And it doesn't mean that sisters whose mom or dad were not in the home are any less. It just means that it really does help, because it's that security that you feel, that sense of confidence that you just exude it. You don't have to say it. Whereas others may lack that a little bit and may feel that the way to show that confidence is to speak a little louder, right? Challenge people a bit more. I don't feel the need to do that. Again, my leadership is just unapologetic. This is who I am, and I'm this every day, right? And I'm this with you, and I'm the same way with others as well. I don't choose who I'm going to be kind to.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say then is that you don't fall into the trap of trying to imitate, let's say, what we understand as quote unquote male leadership.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And, I've had the opportunity to work with males as my leader, and I never feel that pressure to behave in a certain way or respond in a certain way. And I do feel that many females, my sisters and others, often feel as if they're being compared to males. Sometimes communities are more accepting of males when they make mistakes or they do things right, and they're like, oh, well, that's a man, and they feel like they need to support men, whereas they feel like women, because we're homemakers, we're caretakers, we should just come on the job and be able to do it. So there's a lot more pressure, I think, for women. And of course, think about the old adage about Black women, right? And how back in the day, they would come in from the field, give birth to a baby, and 20 minutes later, they're right back out there picking cotton, right? What they were really trying to say is that Black women can do anything and handle anything. So sometimes we do come to our leadership with the idea that we have to be strong, we have to be bold, right? And what does strength mean? For me, strength means being able to make errors and recognize it and move on and grow. Strength means not being afraid to share what I do with other people. Strength for me means not being afraid to have other people in the spotlight. But for others, strength means I have to be in the spotlight. Everybody must know I'm the boss. By the way I speak, by the way I carry myself, by the things I do and say, I never feel that kind of pressure.
Why do you think that there is such a dearth of chocolate and caramel people in the teaching field and in leadership positions? And what can we do to increase those numbers?
Well, let's begin with the obvious fact that there are still communities who are not ready to take on people of color in their districts, whether it's in a teaching position or it's in a leadership position. There are some districts that still feel more comfortable dealing with people who are like themselves. And when you are Black coming into a white district, you do bring some cultural differences to your leadership style or your teaching style, right? There's a survey out there that says that students love Black teachers more than they do any other teacher. And this is students, scholars, meaning Black scholars, white scholars, all scholars like Black teachers more. And the reason they say that Black teachers hold them to a higher standard.
So I'd love to actually reference that survey. If we can find that, and we'll post that on our site also.
Absolutely.
Because we really want to get the whole background. So does that survey response, does that include Hispanic teachers as well? Or when it says Black, is it Black from Black period, or is it so I'm always curious.
They're talking about Black teachers and the fact that Black teachers are a little bit more serious in the classroom. They're a little bit more stern. They're more firm, and they hold scholars to a little bit more of a higher standard. They don't allow excuses, and that they tend to be that way with all children, despite their color, despite their socioeconomic background. And so, unfortunately, some districts, though, are not ready to integrate in terms of their staff. They're certainly not ready for Black leadership. And in some cases, they're not ready to have too many Black teachers. And when they begin by bringing in Black teachers, they're usually more comfortable bringing in light-skinned Black teachers with the soft hair, more so than the dark-skinned Black woman, let's say, with dreadlocks.
So it's so profound. Do you think these districts need to change what they're doing in order to be open to a more diverse teaching and leadership staff? Or do the people who are applying for these positions, do they have to make necessary changes in order to be viewed as ready to be in these districts?
Well, certainly when you come to the table for an interview, I think being articulate and knowledgeable in most cases will make you stand out. But certainly if you stand out with two other people, I think most districts are going to go with the teacher that they would be more comfortable with. So I would say that some districts do have to change their hiring practices and be open to diversifying their staff, whether or not the scholars are diverse. Because I tend to feel that districts are feeling, those districts who are beginning to hire people of color are saying, well, we're hiring more people of color because our district is becoming more diverse. But I think whether or not the district is diverse, every child should have the opportunity to have a diverse staff, even if it's just to build understanding and respect of another race or culture.
Well, yes, and we know that the bottom line is organizations that have more diversity in their workforce are going to be able to target a broader spectrum of any population that they're attempting to target.
Absolutely.
So, among other great reasons, it makes dollars and cents. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't talked about?
Well, I don't think we've talked a lot about scholars today. And so I feel like whether we're talking about teachers or we're talking about leadership, the bottom line is that the commodity that we serve are young people that we're trying to prepare for a global society, a global economy, a global world. And so I think it's really important that, that I mentioned that everything that I've always done, it has always been in the best interest of the scholars. I know sometimes people say that very frequently, my decisions are based on the best interest of the children, but sometimes we don't see that. So one of the things that I think that I want us to highlight is that if you want to get into leadership, if you're thinking of getting into leadership, please make sure that it's not for the money. Please make sure that you're making this decision based on the people you serve, right? We're not making cars. This is not Ford, right? We're really not churning out good blenders, right? We're churning out human beings that we want to be in a position one day to really continue on a legacy. And it should be a legacy of greatness, especially in terms of leadership.
I think it's a great place to end. I'd just like to tell you how thankful I am to have the opportunity to sit down with you and have this wrap session about leadership and education. It's something that's really close to both of us. And I think that you are magnificent in what you do, and it's really refreshing to talk to somebody who is not afraid to exude this kind of honesty and yet have such a powerful position as you do. Uniondale is really fortunate to have you, and so are we. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And on behalf of AfroUAE, I'm Justin Williams and Michael Irons, behind the scenes bringing you this really, really great, fantastic content. Take care.